Shishimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtadarshas Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Hridayas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Vrindavan Dham ki Mayapur Dham ki Jagat Nakshatra Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Yamuna Mai ki Tulsi Maharani ki Harinam Sankirtanya ke ki Samagana Bhakta Vrinda ki all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Rajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtatara Sata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashtatara Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamukund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Raj Bhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jainitai Gaura Primanande Haribo O glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. O glorious, the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. O glorious to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So, thank you to the devotees for giving me the service of sharing a thing or two of my limited understanding of the Bhagavad Gita. We're going to be doing an interesting backlog because there was a mix-up with how the verses are distributed. So last week I did text 33, and this week I'll be doing text 27 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a nice chapter. We're studying this in Bhakti Shastri, so it's quite cool. Just getting to understand how how Krishna would logically formulate his arguments. Arjuna in the first chapter, I've explained this before, but basically Arjuna in the first chapter gives his points, his arguments. This is why I'm not going to fight. And so 4 of the main key aspects of the reasons why Arjuna chooses to not fight are established in the first chapter. Then in the second chapter, Arjuna develops indecision, which is the 5th reason why he chooses not to fight, which even stimulates him taking shelter of Krishna, Karpanya dosha upahata svabhava. And then he tells him, Shishyaste ham shadi mam tvam prapanam. I'm asking for your shishya. You give me the understanding. I need to understand from you what is best for me to do. And so the second chapter becomes Krishna's first establishing the reasons in a basic way as a summary of why Arjuna should actually perform his duty. And then the rest of the Bhagavad Gita becomes him breaking it down in much more comprehensible ways, giving Arjuna the opportunity to engage in the question and answer format that allows for also our questions to be answered and our ignorance to be dispelled. And so here text 27, which we're going to recite just shortly, is just right after Krishna has given up a very, very strong argument of the eternality of the soul and the temporary aspect of the body. And so we're going to recite this together. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur Dhruvam janma mritasya cha Tasmad apariharyete Natvam shochitum arhasi Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur Dhruvam janma mritasya cha Tasmad apariharyete Natvam shochitum arhasi Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur Dhruvam janma mritasya cha Tasmad apariharyete Natvam shochitum arhasi. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityur Dhruvam janma mritasya cha Tasmad apariharyerte natvam shochitum arhasi. Word for word and translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jatasya, of one who has taken his birth. He, certainly. Dhruvaha, a fact. Mrityuhu, death. Dhruvam, it is also a fact. Janma, birth. Mritasya, of the dead. Cha, also. Tasmat, therefore. Apariharye, of that which is unavoidable. Arte, in the matter. Na, do not. Tvam, you. Shochitum, to lament. Arhasi, deserve. Translation: one who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport: one has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to die to take birth for the next. In this way, one is going through one cycle of birth and death after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts, of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So can you repeat after me the translation? One who has taken birth is sure to die, and after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, as mentioned, Arjuna was very much overcome by affection. Affection connected with the body. If we think about it, we all have this to some degree. One person was asked, that if there was an attack happening and you were with a bunch of children and you could save other children first, would you still save those children, then go for your child, or will you still go for your child first, then save the children? Or for the relative or the one that you know? And 99.9% of people said, I will actually first go get my child. I don't want to lie and say, I would save the other ones first, but no, actually, I would save my relative first, my loved one first. Then if I have the opportunity to save others, then I will. Why is this? Because of that rope of affection, in Sanskrit known as sneha pasya. So this rope of affection is so strong. And we get a glimpse of how this rope of affection afflicts Arjuna at one of the most crucial moments of his life, where he has his duty to perform. Krishna has told him, happy are the Kshatriyas who fighting opportunities like this come about. We know that the Battle of Kurukshetra was like the last resort. Krishna tried everything. Mitigation, having a discussion, okay, let's create something peaceful. But then it all resulted to the battle. Things like Draupadi's disrobing, all these just aggravated the situation. And so the only conclusion was that actually we have to go to war. So Prabhupada talks about it in the purport that this act is not the same as that which is caused as like unnecessary murder, slaughter, and warfare as we understand it in the material world or in our circumstance. Our understanding of wars are like World War, which happened because of countries being triggered because of different factors. And then what happens? Everyone else is put in this pool. Whereas when we look even at the Battle of Kurukshetra, it was a little bit different. It's not like the mothers, the children, the less vulnerable in society were actually involved in fighting in the war. This was really handled in a much more mature way because the systems of Varnashram Dharma were strongly established then as well. And so even Krishna addresses Arjuna here, and throughout, connecting him with the fact that he's performing activities based on his dharma as a Kshatriya. So his dharma is to fight. The word Kshatriya means to help protect people from harm. So in one way, shape, or form, he's going to have to perform his duty. And so that's why and I think Prabhupada makes this point in one of the purports, that if Arjuna thinks by cessation from the battle and moving into a renounced platform and acting as a sannyasi, and focusing on self-realization that he'll be successful, in one way or shape or form, he will find a space to express his kshatric nature. Because that's just who he is. And the word that was used, apariharye, in the verse, of that which is unavoidable. And Krishna says, unavoidable discharge of your duty. So in one way, shape, or form, you will have to still be a kshatriya in one space. You can't run away from it. That's your duty. And especially because they're in a time that's less contaminated, people were certain about their duty. Varnashankara was something in the future. It wasn't something that was happening at present. So a person could confidently say, I'm a kshatriya. Not just because I'm born in that home, but because I assimilate the attributes. So the duty still has to be performed. And Krishna is highlighting this. So he's telling him, and this is the argument that he uses, which is quite nice, because he started, he gave the namriyate, najayate mriyate vakadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita vanabuyaha. And he spent his time explaining, I think in earlier verses of chapter 2, you're not this body, you're the spirit soul. This body is temporary, but the soul is eternal. So even if they die in this battle, you're not really killing them, right? And so that point that he established in those earlier verses is what is coming here for Krishna to use to rebuttal and to tell Arjuna, fight. He's telling Arjuna, get into the battle. And some people are always questioning, how is it that Krishna is instigating war when Arjuna is trying to propagate peace? But it's because they neglect the fact that it's a duty-based war, and it's a war based on reestablishing dharmic principles, which is what's more important than the actual battle in itself. The establishment of dharma and the opportunity for even things like sanatan dharma or devotional service to be established can only be done so if Dharma is established. We wouldn't get the opportunity to think about self-realization if in one way, shape, or form it wasn't established before. And so the power of the Parampara system, and that's why Prabhupada says that that's our gem, Parampara, is because the strong establishment of this process of devotional service has been there from the beginning. And it's been carried out by the Parampara system and then gladly delivered to us by the causeless mercy. So we have that validity. And so in the same fashion, Krishna is using the same validity to give the argument. One who has taken his birth is sure to die, and after death is sure to take birth again. Process of reincarnation. So there's no need to lament. Because even if you're not the one killing them, they will have to die anyway. And you're now doing it, reestablishing a dharmic principle and actually creating wellness for the society and for the futures to come. So you might as well do it and be the cause of their death in that sense, even though you're not the doer because you're the spirit soul and the soul doesn't act in this way. It's the body based on the reciprocation with the laws of material nature. And so it's interesting just how Krishna is like an expert debater. You know, like when in school you do inter-school debate and you're looking for, there's always like the top debaters who just get the proper arguments and smash them at the beginning. Because after chapter 2 being recited, basically, Arjuna should have just surrendered, But obviously we know he did it for the mercy of us, as a merciful act for us to understand more of the deeper things. Yeah, and so he's being told, regardless, because death is certain, there's nothing as sure as death, they're going to die, you might as well engage in actually performing your dharmic responsibility. And in the future he mentions that if you do not perform your responsibility, that puts you in a much worse situation and leads you to a hellish condition of life. And so you might as well, and that's why the whole Karmakanda argument Krishna propagates, you either enjoy here, by performing your duty if you win. And if you die and lose, you go to the heavenly planets because you'll be awarded the piety based on you also performing your duty. So it's not even thinking about the results of the activity, but simply by performing our duty, we're guaranteed a secure position nonetheless. And then I just started to meditate on why Arjuna is having this attachment. And then relating it to our situation, and even though we understand the philosophy, we're still quite fearful of death. Or at least I can speak for myself. Some people are probably more advanced, but death is something that we still find scary for us. Because that sneha pasya, that attachment, that rope of affection, is so strong. And one of the acharyas mentions that it becomes even stronger if we are not able to see Krishna or we're away from him. Then what we can hold on to, we'll hold on to with as much strength. That's why the materialist will still pursue material satisfaction, because all he understands is his material body. And so he'll push, and any opportunity not spent in sense gratification is an opportunity lost in the eyes of a materialist. And this point becomes affirmed by Krishna in chapter 2, 59, 60 to 61. Where he mentions, and I'll just get it here because it's quite nice. So Krishna mentions it easy that even if you're to restrain the body from sense activities, the meditation might still be present. And if the meditation is still present, you might as well be doing the activity. And then this one wonderful pastime that Maharaj, Anmanivedan Maharaj was giving us, of the two Brahmans. And so the two sannyasis, the tale of the two sannyasis. So the two sannyasis were crossing a river, and there was a lady who needed to be helped to cross the river. And so one of the sannyasis decided to help the lady cross the river. And then they kept on with their journey. And so they go on with their journey, and they've gone like 10, 20 kilometers ahead. And so the other one was meditating on it, like, I can't believe you actually did that. You actually, you helped the lady cross, because the duty of a sannyasi is to completely renounce in that sense and never have that kind of physical contact. So then after some point, 10, 20 kilometers down the line, or down the travel, the other sannyasi asks him, Maharaj, how could you do this? And Maharaj, then he asks him, what do you mean, what did I do? He said, I can't believe those 20 kilometers behind, you made that lady cross. You helped her. You were holding her as she was crossing the river. And then what did the other sannyasi say? He said a very powerful point. He said, I just helped her cross the river, but you've carried her 20 kilometers down the line, still meditating on her like this. And I found that to be quite a powerful. So even, and you know, Krishna has the same, he uses the same argument. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyments, the taste for sense objects remain. But then he gives a solution. He says, but seizing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he's fixed in consciousness. And then he creates another interesting dynamic that the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind of even a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. And I even noticed this with myself. I know we've been learning in Bhakti Shastra, we're being told that the senses are untrustworthy, don't focus on them, you focus on devotional service, Maya, 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 Mama Maya, Durachaya, we've been emphasized. But still, they're so strong and impetuous that at that moment, it carries your intelligence. And it's scary that even, because Krishna mentions the mind of even a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. And I don't know which word he uses. Vipaschitaha, full of discriminating knowledge. You know, that's a person who's seeing with a lot of intelligence. So even the most intelligent person can still be dissuaded by the predilections of the senses. But then, so first he mentions a higher taste, because you can still look and then you're meditating on it, even though you're not physically engaging with it, and so there's no difference. And then he mentions, okay, the man of discrimination can still be carried away. But then he gives a solution, which is so nice of Krishna, because Krishna explains to you the problem and so kindly gives you a solution. And so he says so nicely, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. And that man, he cannot be dissuaded by the predilections of his senses, which is amazing. So restraining his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me. So one devotee, I think it was Prabhupada disciple, Her Grace Krishna Nandini Mataji, she said that, and it was a very nice point that she meditated on, she was saying, when we read some of these verses, we should use it as a checklist to see what we're doing in our life at present and how we can change and manipulate things so that we can be able to apply ourselves to the verses as they're being mentioned. And so, if it's saying here, restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence, we can introspect. To what degree am I working to restrain my senses? To what degree am I working to keep them under full control and to actually fixate my consciousness upon Krishna? If I meditate a little bit more, am I doing that throughout my day? Or are there times that I'm giving leeway for me to think about other things? And it's not an easy thing to identify. And I remember one time, His Grace Ananta Gopal Prabhu, he spotted me and he asked me, where are you eating from? Are you eating by yourself? Don't eat with the devotees. And I was thinking, no, but it's Prashadam and I'm playing some kirtan. But then later on, when I started thinking about it, I saw that I was giving an open room for all these other disturbances of the mind to come and affect me and attack me without any protection. And so his point, which was quite powerful, was just be around the devotees. Even though he didn't explain it like this, but it makes so much sense. Be around the devotees, and when you're with them, even when the mind is swaying you, you have something to bring you back up. It's also kind of like how, the seniors in the temple, in our council encouraged us to stay in the temple room throughout Japa, for majority of the Japa. Because if we're to be by ourselves in one room, we'll sleep and knock out and there's no one to tell you. But when you're with the devotees, you're protecting yourself. So the devotees become a shelter for us to run away from the ignorance. So when we see even a verse like this, we can see how much are we allowing for Maya to attack. Are we giving Maya an opportunity to catch us when otherwise she shouldn't, And then probably that would be a good way to kind of figure out, okay, Hare Krishna. To kind of figure out, okay, this is what I need to do to progress further. Because for many of us, our frustration comes when we don't think we know what to do to move on. But then the introspective sage has full understanding, and the person who's attempting to be introspective can understand this is where I'm falling short. But the only way we can be able to know is if we read. Because if we didn't read this verse, we wouldn't think about this in the first place. So where am I not performing? What do I need to improve in my daily practice? We have some devotees who are working on their sadhana sheets and plans, who are living outside. One time we're having a discussion, then someone was saying, I add a little bit of a cheeky Netflix. 1 hour, 2 hours, just to pass the time. And another one will say, I'll take, 30 minutes to go on Instagram and watch a few videos. But that's, if you're to introspect, is an opportunity you've given Maya to attack you. And you've told her, okay, here, I don't have any of my armor, you can shoot. And so we probably have to put ourselves in a position, that's the same thing for me, really preaching to myself here, that, okay, where am I allowing for Maya to attack me? And what can I do so that I don't allow her to be able to catch me here? So that if she has to attack, she has to look for a harder way to attack. And that's the power of the scriptures. And I think that's why when we see our seniors, they're so focused on reading and hearing, because some of these things we can act like we know, because we've heard them once or twice in the class. But the more they read on it, the more it allows them to introspect. And so they can meditate on how they're applying these principles in their life. Because we don't just want to read the books, we kind of also want to experience what's in the books. And so even for me, I just ask Krishna, I hope one day I can be like that, read and actually meditate on, okay, where am I relating with Arjuna in this situation? And what can I do to get myself out of this situation? And so, Krishna is so kind with the way he just presents his arguments to just convince Arjuna that, don't be dissuaded by your senses. And also, if we understand that our senses can do this to us, then we're able to check ourselves when the senses begin. And it's like with that cycle of contemplation and attachment and lust, anger begins, because we're allowing ourselves to engage in contemplation, then we're creating a platform where attachment can be bred. And so if that happens, then lust becomes an open opportunity for us. And then we get frustrated because we're not able to fulfill the desires. Why? Because we can't. Desires in the material world are insatiable because we're using faulty machines. It's like trying to use an old phone in GPS days to connect to 5G network Wi-Fi. It's impossible. It will be very, very difficult. So if we're trying to get the best enjoyment, we use the tools that help us to be able to have the perceptibility to receive that enjoyment. But that might require some difficulty. And so Arjuna's difficulty here is that he has to fight the people that he has attachment to. For us, what's our difficulty? We have to fight the disturbances of our senses that we've adapted in such a particular way. And now we're having to recalibrate. And it's hard. But that's our fight. And then maybe by Krishna's mercy, he'll see, oh, they're trying, let me give them something easy. Let me make it easy for them. But because Krishna says here that the only way for us to be able to be controlled is if we fixate our consciousness upon him, we have to do that. I was talking with one devotee just earlier on today, and I was saying, I'm not a reader. So I'm trying to listen to audiobooks because I just don't. But in one way, shape or form, we have to fixate ourselves in the consciousness because that's the standard that Krishna has given. And that's what Prabhupada was trying to do for us, to put us in a position where we can be fixated in Krishna consciousness. And there was actually one nice class when we were doing transfer service. We played one of the lectures, and it's a very sweet address that I think Prabhupada was giving before he was going to Vrindavan. And he said, dress the deities gorgeously, offer the deities prasadam gorgeously, always chant Hare Krishna, and read the books. And in this way, Maya won't be able to attack you. And you've been so strong, he was telling the devotees, you've been so strong, but you just have to keep on carrying on. So that's probably our fight, and that's probably how we can relate, that we're fighting this imprint that we've put on ourselves for so long, and so that we can fixate on ourselves on the platform where we can actually be able to truly enjoy. And Paramakaruna Prabhu said something very nice, because I was saying, I was trying to act like a pure devotee syndrome. I'm just an enjoyer in this material world, that's all I know. And then Paramakaruna looked at me and said, if you're really an enjoyer, then you look for the best way to enjoy, and that's Krishna consciousness. And I was like, okay, I can't argue with that. Jai. So, just to touch on a few things, Krishna is giving the argument that, one needs to perform their duty. And he emphasizes his point on the eternality of the soul. So there should be no cause of lamentation for the body, because the body is temporary anyway. And if Arjuna is not the one to kill them, they will still have to die, because one who takes birth has to die. So you better help them be situated in a perfect consciousness. And we know those who were killed in the battle, they became liberated. So if they had to die by their own whims, they would still be subject to the modes of material nature, and still be subject to their karma, and might probably have to go down to an animal birth. But because of Arjuna's performing his duty properly, he helped situate them all in their duty as well. And that brings another nice point, that if we perform our duty, it's not just for our benefit, but it's for the benefit of others. And Indra Prabhu says this one nice point in one of his Vyas Puja offerings to Prabhupada. He says, we have to be advanced association for the benefit of others. And that's quite nice. It's just come at the moment. And then he talks about, Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport that this war is not a war just based on material affliction, but it's actually a war that's beyond that of the material conception, a war that's detrimental for the establishment of Dharma. And so he needs to perform his duty, otherwise it can be detrimental for the society and for the future. And we know Varnashankara and all these things and hellish life. And that Arjuna really has no fear to perform his duty, because if he performs his duty, there's no possibility of negative reaction. And especially now, if he performs his duty as Nishkam Karma Yoga in full consciousness of the Supreme, renouncing either ownership or results. And just like that, he encourages him to fight. And so probably he's also asking us to fight as well. Fight the forces that are stopping you from becoming closer to Krishna, however hard it might be. Because it's hard, man. It's difficult. Some people just have it stronger than others. Or some people just have battles that you just can't see. But it's difficult for everyone. But by the mercy of Krishna, that difficulty becomes minimized and we can be able to cross over with ease. So I'll finish there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? Oh, Krishna. Mm-hmm.
So there might be like, what advice can we give them?
Thank you, Prabhu. That's a good question. What advice can we give to people who who we're close to, who we have some, let's say, some affection for in that sense. And, you know, because it's our duty to some degree to kind of do that for them, isn't it? But it's our duty to save ourselves first. And I remember Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, he mentioned one time when he gave a class here, and I remember I was still new and it was my first time asking a Swami a question. And so I was telling him, oh Maharaj, you know, I'm really stressed out because my mom is still doing these things that are not dharmic. So what can I do? Because it's frustrating me, I can't do anything. And then Maharaj looked me straight in the eye and he said, when you're in a plane and it's an emergency situation, the instruction they give you is that when your mask comes out, you put your mask in first, and then you can help others to put on their masks.